Journalist Zoe Grunwald and The Sun's deputy political editor, Ryan Sabey. And Ryan, let's get straight into your paper. I mean, it's slightly out of date, this story now. Not The Sun's fault, of course. It's more to do with events overtaking things, with that downed pilot being found by the US. But nevertheless, the headline, 48 hours to hell, I mean, it could still play out if Donald Trump decides to change things up.
Yeah, the US president has set out his so-called ground rules for how he sees the next few days playing out in Iran. It wasn't that long ago that he said Iran had 48 hours to decide. Then it was 10 days. Yeah. We're now in the sort of last 48 hours of that countdown. So I think let's just see where he is. But if he is saying that there is going to be maybe ground forces go into Iran, go into Karga Island, where the oil is in Iran. This could move up to another level, this conflict. And it just shows you, whether it's because he's under pressure internally within America, his poll ratings aren't very good. Does he feel like he needs to do this to actually sort of boost his standing within the American people? Yeah. And it's a big decision. It's a big decision for him. But then also this piece also focuses on the knock-on consequences for the everyday person, whether it's petrol prices, when to book your holiday, and also cricket balls.
There's a shortage.
Yeah, there's a shortage of it, because that's the stitching on cricket balls for Duke's cricket balls is actually done in Asia, and because of the conflict, it looks like there'll be a shortage for the cricket season that started just a few days ago. But the big picture is Donald Trump and what he does in the next few hours.
Yeah, I think people will be concerned that he may be saying this, it'd be bluster to try and get the Iranians to do a deal, but at the same time, he may back himself into a corner and feel he has to do something. It does feel like it's on a little bit of a knife edge in that respect. Zoe, let's have a look at the Sunday Express. They say Brexit reset will cost the UK £3 billion a year, and add that Sir Keir Starmer is being accused of quietly signing Britain up to Brussels. Who's accusing him of that? Is it happening?
I think it's the Sunday Express.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so this comes after Keir Starmer's speech last week, where he essentially said, because of all the turmoil in the Middle East, because our relationship with the US is shifting, there is strength in numbers, there's strength in aligning with the EU. And, of course, this has got the usual uproar from the usual suspects, the Sunday Express being one of them. They're now talking about that if Sir Keir Starmer did try and take the UK back into some kind of deal with Europe, potentially the single market, this could cost the Treasury £2.9 billion a year. This is essentially based on looking at Norway, which has a similar model. This costs them £390 million a year, and they've times it by 7 because their economy is seven times less smaller than ours. But the government have come back and said not only is this sum based on purely hypothetical figures, essentially you've kind of just based it on Norway, we've got no reason to believe that would be the case. We aren't planning to take the UK back into the single market. So not only is this hypothetical, it's also not going to happen. And then, of course, there's also the fact that the House of Commons' own figures predicts that we are losing about £90 billion a year from not being part of the EU. That is the cost to the UK economy. So £3 billion, a drop in the market compared to how much we are losing every year by not being a part of the European Union.
Yes, it's something we used to be net contributors to, of course. Others will be quick to point out. Ryan, let's have a look at the Mail. They say Kemi and Nigel are neck and neck. And two individuals who don't even have to use their surnames. Everyone knows who we're talking about. Yeah,
fascinating polling in the Mail on Sunday, and it puts Reform, the Conservatives and the Greens all on 21%. And one of the sort of key things of this polling is the fact that when people are asked the question, it's on how they would vote at the next election rather than how they would vote tomorrow. Right. So there is a little bit of waiting on this, but it does show you whether Kemi Badenoch has had some kind of resurgence after, some might say a stuttering start. But also, when it comes to Reform, have they sort of reached some kind of plateau? Now, they still are getting good figures, but have they just reached the sort of the high point? And people are, looking at the party. Is it a Conservative Party Mark II with the, Robert Jenrick being brought in, Nadeem Zahawi? Are people just seeing it through Suella Braverman through that kind of prism? So they're sort of looking at this piece, looks at the option of whether you have a progressive alliance of parties on the left, would they all come together? What happens on the right with the Conservative Reform? And they mention Rupert Lowe's party, Restore Britain, that now has 123,000 members, which is more than the sort of Conservative Party.
And he had a big falling out with Nigel Farage.
Exactly.
Hence that Restore being started in the first place.
So people who have fallen out with Nigel Farage in terms of not liking reformers as much as they did, are they now moving over to Rupert Lowe? So it's a big split across both divides.
Let's have a look, Zoe, inside the Telegraph. I don't know if we've just got this story or the photo that's next to it, which is unrelated, but I want to refer to that photo because it's a trio you wouldn't ever expect to put together. It's got the Duke of Sussex pitched alongside Eileen Gu, the Olympic skiing star, and Justin Trudeau, the former Canadian Prime Minister. Apparently his girlfriend, Katy Perry, was also there. These are people you'd never put together in the same ski gondolier a year ago, but there you go, caught my attention. Next to it, though, is the story we're going to talk about. Italians using so much English, its language risks dying out. Although, I have to say, Italians are some of the best at talking with their hands in the world. The gesticulating is a big part of it. But what's the story?
Yeah, so this is a prediction that's made by the head of the Accademia della Crusca, which is the world's oldest language institute. It was founded in 1583 to preserve the purity of the Italian language. They are warning that Italian is kind of getting swept away by the increasing use of Italians using English words. So the growing use of what they're calling Itanglese or Italiano, which has been accelerated by the pandemic. They talk about phrases such as long COVID, lockdown, contact tracing, smart working, all being used now in Italian parlance. They say English is progressively eroding the use of Italian in the world's research and education. And they also talk about how Italian is actually, it's quite a new language compared to, say, French or English. So it doesn't kind of have that resilience that these other languages have. But it's basically a warning to Italians, keep using the Italian language. Don't start using the English language. I mean, the Italian language is so beautiful. Don't replace it with, you know,
some of the words they've adopted is they say box. That actually they use that for a car garage space. Baby parking as a creche or nursery. A bomber has nothing to do with B-17s or Lancasters. It denotes a high-scoring striker in a football team. And they have a word sexy shot, but I don't even want to tell you why they use that one. Anyway, moving swiftly on, let's stay in the Telegraph, Ryan. A more serious story about boys being let down by a lack of role models. I think this is coming from this meeting of teaching unions who are warning of an increase in misogyny in the classroom being aimed at female teachers.
Yeah, there's been some analysis done by the Centre for Social Justice, and it just shows that the disappearance of youth clubs and volunteers volunteering of men in sort of sports and leisure clubs has really had this real impact on young men. And this report finds that 1 in 4 boys that were sort of completely happy with their lives 10 years ago is down from 15 years ago when it was 1 in 3. So it just shows you how there has been some kind of generational shift. And brings back to Gareth Southgate, the former England manager, talking about this when he made a major speech just, I think it was about a year or so ago, saying young boys were withdrawing from society. Were they getting involved in too much gaming, talking about online influencers? So it is a real issue.
A lot of people are talking about that Louis Theroux documentary right now, aren't they, about the manosphere? And what you sort of learn from it is just how sad, in some ways damaged, some of these individuals are. And you kind of hope that some of these young lads who perhaps being influenced by that, it's a shame they don't know the true story, that it's kind of tragic, some of this stuff. Yeah,
and I think there's a real recognition going on now about the role of social media in this, particularly the algorithm. So if you compare a teenage boy, a 14-year-old boy's feed on TikTok or Instagram or whatever to that of a 14-year-old girl, immediately, as soon as the algorithm figures out their age and their gender, they are served a whole different raft of content that quickly pushes them into manosphere, misogynistic content. And there was a poll this weekend done by a teachers' union that disclosed that so many female teachers are now reporting, I think it was a quarter of female teachers now are reporting misogyny directed at them from boys in the classroom. And they are directly linking this to the growing role of the manosphere. It's also pushing messages of people that the older generations have never even heard of, whereas the younger, I mean, that became more apparent when Charlie Kirk died, and there was seems to be a cut-off point, sub-30, everyone knew who he was, and over 30, a lot of people didn't have any clue who he was, which shows you how those algorithms are working. Obviously, slightly different messages there. Should we talk, Zoe, marmalade? I mean, look, it's breakfast time.
And The Observer says, Razor Toast British marmalade survives a storm in a jar. What's that all about?
Yeah, so there were fears that marmalade, fans of marmalade, apparently that is
Paddington.
A group that exists. I do like marmalade, I just didn't realise there was a...
shredless?
Shredded.
OK.
Yeah.
Old school.
I like it chunky. It was rebranded. They thought it was going to be rebranded citrus marmalade because of a new trade deal done between the UK and the EU. And of course, Reform was furious about this. Richard Tice, the deputy, said no bungling Brussels bureaucrats should be telling Brits how to label our delicious marmalade. Hands off our marmalade. Anyway, Richard Tice has got what he wanted. It's going to remain just marmalade.
OK, enjoy that if you're putting it on your toast this Easter morning. Zoe, Ryan, thank you both very much indeed. More coming up after the break.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to